Recently, I've been hearing a lot of confusion about people's misconceptions about what impeachment is, how it works, who's responsible for it, and ultimately whether or not Donald Trump has in fact been impeached. So I thought I'd discuss 5 things I think you should know about the Donald Trump impeachment. Let's go. Number 1, has Donald Trump been impeached? And the answer to this question is yes, Donald Trump has been impeached. He and 2 other presidents have been successfully impeached. The House of Representatives is responsible for this, but ultimately it's the Senate that decides the question of whether or not a president is to be removed from office or acquitted. So if Donald Trump has been impeached, what does that say about what impeachment is? Well, impeachment is an inherently political process because it's overseen by a political institution. By definition, it's imperfect because of that. Some of the founding fathers, including Alexander Hamilton, wrote extensively about the consequences to abusing the impeachment power. But it is a power that is solely vested in Congress, more specifically the House of Representatives. Now, in order for someone to be impeached, they have to engage in conduct which rises to the level of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. And any conduct that falls outside of that definition is not something that a sitting office holder could be removed from office for. So it's a very serious charge, and that's exactly what it is. Impeachment could be thought of as a formal charge brought against the sitting office holder, and that's all it is. It's up to the Senate to decide whether or not that charge manifests itself in the form of a removal from office or an acquittal. And in the case of the only 2 other presidents to have ever been impeached, they were acquitted. So what happened? In December 2018, Donald Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, was dispatched to manage a personal vendetta for Donald Trump in targeting Burisma, which was in turn going after his chief domestic political rival, Joe Biden. He was aided in these efforts by
Together we're the Three Amigos!
3 individuals that would go on to be called the Three Amigos, consisting of Rick Perry, Energy Secretary, Gordon Sondland, and Kurt Volker. What would go on to happen over the course of the next year or so was a splinter diplomatic operation targeting Marie Yovanovitch, the then sitting ambassador to the Ukraine, and a conditional contingency placed on continued military aid to Ukraine. So sometime prior to all of this happening, the Trump administration increased the availability of military aid to the Ukraine, which we hadn't previously given to them. And then a July 25th phone call with newly elected president of Ukraine hinted at a quid pro quo, wherein an investigation into Joe Biden and Burisma was conditioned on military aid. And within hours of that phone call having taken place, military aid, according to the OMB, was suspended. And it was not released again till months after the fact, and the disclosure about the whistleblower report was circulating at the White House. And again, it was only hours after that took place, the memo about the whistleblower began to circulate at the White House that the military aid was released. Gordon Sondland testified that there was a quid pro quo, that there was a contingency of a meeting with the president and an investigation, or at least a public statement about an investigation into Burisma to release the military aid. This is something that Ambassador Taylor was aware of, who was on the ground in Ukraine at the time, who replaced Marie Yovanovitch. And it was something that essentially everyone involved, including Mick Mulvaney, knew about. The president himself spoke directly to this as well. So, quid pro quo. I do a favor for you, i.e. you make a public statement about an investigation into my chief domestic political rival, Joe Biden, and then I release needed military aid so that you can continue your fight against Russia with things such as Javelin missiles, which was a part of the negotiation. So, having established that it happened, was it justifiable to pursue an impeachment because of that? Again, we have to circulate back to that question of, does it rise to the level of actions or conduct which can be defined as treasonous, as bribery, or high crimes and other misdemeanors? And an abuse of power, especially in the context of foreign relations and foreign involvement in our government, is a classic definition of the reason why we included other high crimes and misdemeanors in that in the first place. So by that standard, absolutely. And it would be a dereliction of constitutional responsibilities for the Congress to not do something about it. That said, it is a political process. So the final question is, will Donald Trump be removed from power?
The Senate will decide the fate.
I am the Senate.
Absolutely not. It's a very highly unlikely proposition, because what that would involve is a Senate controlled by the Republicans who've been acting lockstep with the Trump administration and not doing anything to curb his executive overreach, suddenly rewriting the narrative of the entire Republican control of the Senate under the Trump administration and enacting to remove him from power. Again, as we had mentioned earlier in the video, no other president, including the other presidents which had been impeached, had ever been removed from power. So, no. However, there are going to be implications for the 2020 election. This will be a point of consideration when voting in November. Now, if you're interested in hearing more about what I think the implications of the impeachment are on the 2020 election cycle, make sure you stay tuned and subscribe for more videos like the one you saw today. Thank you. Have a nice day.